Welcome back to Edzi, your personal AI tutor. Today we are revising The Portrait of a Lady, Chapter 1 from Hornbill for CBSE Class 11 English. This is an extended episode, so we will spend roughly 30 to 60 minutes together, calmly and without rushing. I am Gaurav, and with me is Swati. Keep a notebook nearby if you have one, but you can also simply listen. Once, Ria from Jaipur told us that she understood the chapter only after she stopped treating it as a summary and started seeing the relationship change scene by scene. We will do exactly that. Explore the portrait, the village bond, education, separation, prayer, sparrows, important questions, vocabulary, and exam tips.
And while listening, do not worry if you cannot write everything. First, understand the emotional movement of the chapter. We will regularly stop for recall questions and you can answer before we continue. The central question is simple but powerful. How can relationship remain deeply loving even when daily companionship gradually disappears?
Let us make a learning map. We begin with the narrator's image of his grandmother. Then we move through three broad stages of their relationship: childhood companionship, growing distance after education changes, and emotional connection despite physical separation. Finally, we examine her last days, the sparrows, the language work, and answer frames that can help in a CBSE response.
Before we discuss events, picture the grandmother. The narrator says he had known her as old and wrinkled for the 20 years of his life. Other people said she had once been young and pretty, but he found that difficult to believe. Why? Her present appearance was so familiar and so strongly connected with his understanding of her that youth seemed almost impossible.
The grandfather's portrait strengthens this impression. He appears extremely old, with a large turban, loose clothes, and a long white beard. The narrator humorously feels that such a man looked as if he could have only grandchildren, not a wife or children. This is gentle humor, because the boy judges the photograph through his own limited childhood imagination.
एक second pause करके सोचो. Does the narrator literally believe that his grandmother was never young? No. He knows what people say, but emotionally he cannot imagine her in any other form. That contrast between factual possibility and personal perception gives the description warmth. He also finds her childhood stories about games absurd because they do not match the old figure before him.
Now notice the important contrast. She could never have been pretty, in the narrator's childhood judgment, but she was always beautiful. Pretty suggests youthful physical attractiveness. Beautiful here suggests serenity, dignity, and inner peace. Her spotless white clothes, silver hair, prayerful lips, and calm presence make him compare her to a winter landscape in the mountains.
That image is not merely decorative. The winter landscape is white, quiet, peaceful, and still. So the comparison presents the grandmother as serene and spiritually grounded. At the same time, her bent body and wrinkles show age. The writer therefore creates a portrait in which physical decline and emotional beauty exist together.
Her religion is visible through repeated actions rather than a single statement. Her lips move in inaudible prayer. She tells the beads of her rosary, reads scriptures, visits the temple, and spends much of her day praying. These details establish faith as the organizing center of her life. Exam point: support a character answer with actions, not only adjectives.
Would it be accurate to call her only strict or old fashioned? That would be incomplete. She is traditional and strongly religious, but she is also caring, disciplined, emotionally controlled, independent in her convictions, and capable of joy. A strong answer should include these different sides instead of reducing her to one label.
Let us record a compact character frame. The grandmother is physically old and bent, yet spiritually serene. She is affectionate without being demonstrative, devoted to prayer, attached to simple routines, and firm in her beliefs. Her love is expressed through care and presence. Later, when circumstances change, her strength appears through quiet acceptance rather than complaint.
Now we enter the first major phase, the village years. The narrator's parents lived elsewhere, so he stayed with his grandmother. They were constantly together and became good friends. This is important because the relationship is described as friendship, not only as a family duty. Their closeness grows through ordinary routines repeated every day.
Every morning she woke him and prepared him for school while reciting her prayer. He liked the sound of her voice, although he never learned the prayer by heart. She washed and prepared his wooden slate, arranged the ink pot and red pen, and tied them in a bundle. These details make her care practical, patient, and deeply involved in his education.
She also carried stale chapatis for the village dogs. So the walk to school included learning, prayer, and kindness towards animals. The school was attached to a temple, which allowed her to accompany him. While the children learned the alphabet and morning prayer, she sat inside reading the scriptures. Their educational worlds were different, but their daily journey was shared.
At the end of the school day, they walked home together. The dogs met them at the temple door and followed them, growling and fighting for the chapatis. The scene is lively and affectionate. It shows the grandmother's relationship with the child, the temple, the dogs, and the village as one connected world.
Quick recall. Name 3 things the grandmother did before the boy went to school. You might say she woke him, dressed him, recited prayers, prepared his school materials, gave him breakfast, and walked with him. Any 3 are valid if they show care and routine. Do not answer with a vague phrase such as, she looked after him alone.
The chapter's emotional foundation is now clear. The grandmother is not distant from the boy at this stage. She is part of his morning, his school route, his food, and his spiritual surroundings. When the relationship later changes, the reader feels the loss because this earlier companionship has been shown such concrete detail.
The family eventually moves to the city after the parents become settled there. The text calls this a turning point in the friendship. That phrase is exam relevant. A turning point is a moment after which the direction of a relationship or situation changes significantly. Here, the change is not caused by a quarrel, it is caused by a new environment and new patterns of life.
In the city, they still share a room, but the grandmother can no longer accompany him to school. He travels by motor bus to an English school. The village dogs disappear from the streets, and she begins feeding sparrows in the courtyard. Observe the pattern. Shared physical space remains, but shared activity decreases.
This is a useful distinction. Physical closeness does not automatically mean emotional companionship. In the village, they traveled, prayed, and returned together. In the city, the same room cannot replace those common experiences. The grandmother's feeding of sparrows becomes a new routine, perhaps filling some of the space left by the boy's changing life.
For some time, she still wakes him and prepares him for school. When he returns, she asks what he has learned. This shows that she continues to care and tries to remain connected. But the content of his education begins to create a gap. He tells her English words and concepts from Western science, such as the law of gravity, Archimedes' principle, and the idea that the world is round.
Why do these lessons trouble her? Not because learning itself is presented as wrong, but because the new school does not include the religious teaching that shaped her world. She cannot help him with these lessons, does not believe in what she hears, and feels distressed by the absence of God and scriptures. Her difficulty is therefore both educational and cultural.
Swati, would it be correct to say that the chapter attacks science?
No, that would be an overstatement. The text shows the grandmother's discomfort with the new knowledge because it does not fit her traditional and religious framework. The narrator reports her response. He does not turn the chapter into a scientific debate. In an answer, write about the cultural and generational gap rather than claiming that science is condemned.
The music lesson becomes another important point of disagreement. When the boy announces that the school is teaching music, the grandmother is deeply disturbed. In a traditional understanding, music has associations with harlots and beggars and is not meant for gentlefolk. She does not argue openly, but her silence expresses disapproval.
This is a subtle moment. The grandmother's silence speaks more strongly than a speech. Earlier, she asked about his lessons and tried to remain connected. After the music announcement, she rarely talks to him. So the scene marks a sharper emotional distance produced by a clash between the school's modern curriculum and her inherited beliefs.
Let us organize the 3 reasons for her disturbance when he attends the city school. First, she cannot accompany him anymore. Second, the school teaches Western science and concepts that she cannot understand or accept. Third, she is troubled that the school does not teach about God and the scriptures, and later she disapproves of music lessons.
एक second pause करके answer in your own words. Did their feelings for each other disappear when their friendship weakened? The stronger reading is no. Shared routines disappear. Conversations reduce and understanding becomes difficult, but affection remains. The later station scene, homecoming, and the narrator's emotional response confirm that the bond survives the distance.
Exactly. This is one of the chapter's most important ideas. Relationships may change in form without losing their emotional core. The grandmother cannot participate in the boy's academic world, and he cannot fully enter hers. Yet the narrative remains tender because the connection is not measured only by conversation or shared lessons.
If you are revising with Etsy, this is a good moment to use active recall. Close your notes and explain in 2 sentences why the move to the city became a turning point. Do not look for a memorized paragraph. Build the answer from the lost school walks, the new education, and the grandmother's growing isolation.
Up tak we have covered the first major movement, childhood closeness changing into distance. We are now entering the section in which the grandmother's own daily world becomes smaller. Watch how the text presents a response, not through dramatic complaints, but through routine, silence, prayer, and seclusion.
When the narrator goes to the university, he receives a room of his own. The text says that the common link of friendship is snapped. This is a strong image. Earlier, the grandmother and boy shared a room and a daily rhythm. Now, even the physical arrangement reflects the separation created by his growing independence.
How does she spend her days? She accepts her seclusion with resignation, rarely leaves the spinning wheel to speak to anyone, sits from sunrise to sunset spinning and reciting prayers, and relaxes only in the afternoon to feed the sparrows. These 3 activities, spinning, praying, and feeding birds, show a life that is disciplined, inward, and detached from the changing outside world.
The sparrows bring a remarkable change in mood. Hundreds gather around her as she breaks bread into small pieces. Some perch on her legs, shoulders, and even her head. She smiles and does not drive them away. The afternoon feeding becomes the happiest half hour of her day, suggesting that affection still flows from her, even when human companionship has reduced.
Notice the phrase a veritable bedlam of chirrupings. Bedlam suggests noisy confusion, while chirrupings are the light sounds made by birds. The phrase creates energy and sound around an otherwise quiet woman. This contrast matters. The grandmother's life is outwardly secluded, but the sparrows make her courtyard lively and emotionally full.
Would you call the grandmother lonely? We should be careful. She is secluded. And the narrator says she accepts that seclusion. But the sparrows, her prayers, and her spinning wheel create meaningful routines. The chapter does convey loss of companionship, yet it does not portray her as helpless. Her ability to build a disciplined life shows strength of character.
That is an important clarification. Resignation does not necessarily mean weakness. In this chapter, it means accepting a changed situation without wasting energy in protest. She recognizes that the boy's life has moved forward and turns towards the practices that give her stability. Her spirituality becomes a source of order when the old companionship is no longer available.
The narrator then decides to go abroad for further studies. He expects that the grandmother may be upset because he will be away for 5 years and at her age, the future is uncertain. At the railway station, however, she does not display open emotion. Her lips move in prayer, her fingers count the beads, and she silently kisses his forehead.
Her silence at the station should not be read as indifference. The moist imprint of her kiss remains with the narrator as perhaps the last physical contact between them. The scene shows affection compressed into a small gesture. She does not make a dramatic farewell, but the narrator understands the emotional significance of that kiss.
After 5 years, he returns home. The grandmother meets him at the station and does not appear a day older to him. She embraces him while continuing her prayers. Even on the first day, her happiest moments are spent feeding the sparrows. This creates continuity. Time has passed for the narrator, but her rituals remain almost timeless.
Then comes the unusual evening. She stops praying, gathers neighborhood women, takes an old drum, and sings about the homecoming of warriors. She sings for several hours and has to be persuaded to stop. This is extraordinary because prayer has been her constant practice. And this is the first time the narrator has known her to abandon it for such spontaneous celebration.
Why does this celebration feel both joyful and unsettling? It is joyful because she openly celebrates the narrator's return. It is unsettling because it breaks her established pattern so suddenly. The next morning, she falls ill and announces that her end is near. The unusual celebration, therefore, becomes a turning moment before the final stage of her life.
There is a possible temptation to call the celebration a direct prediction of death. We should avoid making an unsupported claim. What the text clearly gives us is sequence and contrast. She does not pray that evening, sings with unusual energy, falls ill the next morning, and feels that her end is near. Write the events and their emotional effect, rather than inventing certainty about symbolism.
Quick check. What remained constant when the narrator returned after 5 years? Think of her appearance as he perceived it, her prayers, her embrace, and her feeding of the sparrows. What changed for one evening? She stopped praying, gathered the women, played the drum, and sang. Separating constant features from the unusual event will help you answer inference questions accurately.
The next morning, the grandmother is taken ill with a mild fever. The doctor says that she will recover, but she believes that her end is near. Her reasoning is connected to her religious routine. Since she had omitted prayer the previous evening, she will not waste more time in conversation. She wants to pray and count her rosary.
The family protests, but she ignores them. This is another sign of her strong character. Even when others believe the illness is mild, she trusts her own sense of finality. She does not become frightened or disorderly. She lies peacefully, praying and telling her beads, remaining faithful to the practice that has shaped her entire life.
Her death is quiet. Her lips stop moving. The rosary falls from her fingers, and a peaceful pallor spreads over her face. These details create a serene ending rather than a dramatic one. The narrator's description is tender and restrained, matching the grandmother's own calm acceptance.
एक second pause करके identify the odd behavior just before her death. It is not simply that she became ill. The odd behavior is a sudden evening celebration. She stopped praying, gathered neighborhood women, played the old drum, and sang for hours. This was unusual because prayer had always been central to her routine.
From an exam point of view, a response on her strength can use three moments. She accepts the loss of her old companionship without complaint. She remains firm in her religious routine even when the family protests. And at the end, she faces death with calmness rather than panic. Together, these moments show inner strength, discipline, and self possession.
Now we come to the final image. At sunset, when the family goes to take her body for cremation, thousands of sparrows are scattered across the room and veranda, right up to where she lies. They make no sound. The silence is striking because these are the same birds whose chirruping once filled her happiest half hour.
The narrator's mother brings bread and breaks it into crumbs, copying the grandmother's familiar gesture. Yet the sparrows do not touch the food. When the body is carried away, they fly away quietly. The next morning, the sweeper removes the untouched crumbs. The scene expresses grief without words and gives nature a place in the emotional ending.
Do the sparrows literally explain their sorrow? No. The text presents their silence, refusal of food, and quiet departure as an expression of mourning. In literary interpretation, this suggests the depth of the bond between the grandmother and the birds. It also makes her absence visible. The lively courtyard has become still.
The sparrows also connect different stages of the narrative. In the city, They replace some of the companionship lost when the boy's school life changes. After his return, feeding them remains her happiest routine. At her death, they gather silently. Thus, the birds are not an unrelated decoration, they accompany her solitude, joy, and final loss.
This is the emotional center of the ending. The narrator cannot show a long conversation with his grandmother after her death. Instead, the sparrow's behavior carries the feeling. Their silence mirrors the quietness of her passing and the family's grief. Exam point: when discussing the ending, mention both the refusal of bread and the absence of chirping.
We are entering our question practice section. First, what are the three phases of the author's relationship with his grandmother before he leaves the country? A clear structure is village companionship, growing distance after the move to the city and English school, and further separation at the university when he receives a room of his own.
Before hearing the answer, try to add evidence to each phase. For the village, include the shared school journey and temple. For the city, include the motor bus, English school, and sparrows. For the university, include the separate room and the grandmother's seclusion. A phase based answer becomes much stronger when each point has a textual detail.
Second, give three reasons for the grandmother's disturbance at the city school. She could no longer go to school with the boy. She could not understand or accept the Western science and learning he reported. She was distressed that there was no teaching about God in the scriptures. Her disapproval of music adds another clear example of the cultural divide.
Third, name 3 ways she spent her days after the boy grew up. She sat at the spinning wheel, recited prayers, and fed the sparrows in the afternoon. You may explain that she rarely left the wheel to talk to anyone. Notice how the answer reflects her movement from shared activity towards a quiet, self contained routine.
Fourth, how did the sparrows express sorrow? They gathered silently in the room and veranda, refused the breadcrumbs offered to them, and flew away quietly when the grandmother's body was carried out. This answer is factual, but you can add one interpretation. Their silence contrasts with the noisy chirruping that had once made her happy.
Now consider the question: was the grandmother religious? Yes, and the evidence is continuous. She recited morning prayers, read scriptures, visited the temple, counted rosary beads, spun the wheel while praying, and wanted to spend her last moments in prayer. Her religious nature is shown through a pattern of actions across the entire chapter.
A good character answer should also mention that religion is not the only aspect of her identity. She is loving in the village years, caring about the boy's lessons, attached to animals, capable of celebration, and strong in facing death. If the question asks whether she is strong in character, balance religious devotion with emotional discipline and independence.
Let us revise a useful language point from the chapter. The word tell appears with different senses. Telling beads means counting while reciting. Tell her English words means giving information. One could never tell means being sure or knowing what would happen. She told us that her end was near means making something known in speech.
The word take also changes meaning in phrases. To take to something means to begin doing it as a habit, as when the grandmother takes to feeding sparrows. To take ill means to suddenly become ill. These are good examples of why vocabulary should be understood in context, rather than learnt as one fixed translation.
The chapter also asks us to notice words describing ways of walking. Hobble means walking with difficulty because of weak or damaged legs and feet. Related words in the exercise include shuffle, stride, waddle, trudge, and slog. They are not identical in meaning, so use the context and the manner of movement carefully.
The form section focuses on the past perfect. Forms such as had known, had once been, had finished, had taught, and had lit help recount an event that occurred before another past event. Exam point: when explaining this, say that the past perfect places an earlier action within a past narrative. Do not simply call every past verb past perfect.
Here is a quick grammar check. In she had been old and wrinkled for the 20 years I had known her. identify the past perfect forms. The answer is had been and had known. In when we both had finished, we would walk back together. Had finished marks the earlier completed action. Try spotting the time relationship, not only the verb form.
For a long answer response on the theme, organize your ideas in a sequence. Begin with childhood love and companionship. Explain how education, movement to the city, and growing independence reduce shared routines. Then show that affection remains through the station farewell and homecoming. Conclude with the grandmother's peaceful death and the sparrow's silent grief.
And avoid two common mistakes. First, do not say that the narrator stops loving his grandmother. The source shows changing companionship, not disappearance of feeling. Second, do not describe the sparrows as merely a background detail. Their behavior at the end reflects the special connection created through the grandmother's day feeding.
We are entering the final recap. The chapter presents a portrait of an old, serene, religious grandmother whose love is expressed through daily care. The narrator's relationship with her moves from village companionship to city distance and university separation. Education creates a cultural gap, but not an emotional break. Her prayers, spinning wheel, and sparrows shape her solitude, while her final acceptance shows strength.
The ending leaves us with the silent sparrows, the untouched bread, and the grandmother's peaceful departure. Your small challenge is this: without opening the chapter, write a 6-point timeline from the village school to the sparrow's silence, and then write one paragraph answering. Did the feelings between the narrator and his grandmother change? Check that you include evidence, not just opinion.
That brings us to the end of this extended EDSI revision of the Portrait of a Lady. Remember the common mistake: changed routines do not necessarily mean changed love. For your next step, teach the chapter's 3 relationship phases to a friend, or use EDSI's question-led practice to test yourself on one doubt at a time. Keep your answer focused on the text, use specific details, and revise calmly. I am Gaurav with Swati, and we will meet in the next lesson.